During this video, we're gonna see one of the most funniest conspirations that we have on Earth, on our beautiful flat Earth, that explain a bunch of stuff that it's impossible to explain. I must say that some of them, they're really funny. For example, the existence of the atmosphere or the existence of other planets. If the flat earthers believe in dinosaurs, I can tell you something, they don't believe in dinosaurs. That is pure gold. Also, we're gonna see all the companies that are coming together, organizations that are coming together to sell you that all the idea of the flat earthers is something that it really exists. And this funny conspiracy stuff is something that is out of the place. I must say that the first time that I hear from the flat earthers, I thought that it was just trolling on internet, but they really believe on this stuff. They really believe on this stuff. As always, we're gonna start from the beginning. During the 19th centuries, there were a bunch of people that they were thinking that the flat was Earth. That belief came from scientific people that they weren't able to say that the Earth was round or flat, but they believe that it's flat because it's flat. But some of the people in the 90s, of course, the 90s, they really have this funny idea of the flat earthers that found in the idea that we have today. All the explanation that are coming from there. Charles K. Johnson was the founder of the Flat Earther Society, that they believe this kind of stuff. We're gonna go one by one. The moon. We have a really nice interaction with the moon during the years because we went to the moon. Well, the most obvious answer, we never went to the moon. That was a completely movie made by Stanley Kubrick because he was the most famous director of all time in that time. And they say, we're gonna make a movie with the most prolific director of the moment. We can choose some other guy that nobody knows who it is. No, we're gonna make with the best, Stanley Kubrick. Two conspiracy ideas together. We never went to the moon and the moon, it doesn't exist. The next question is going to be, how can you explain that the moon is moving and we have eclipses from time to time? The answer is simple. There is no moon. There is something known as the anti-moon. The anti-moon. Yes, I'm not making this up. That is something like a big blanket, a big surface that puts sometimes between the sun and the earth. Big surfaces, they like to do something like that. That's it. That's how you have the eclipse, because eclipses work that way with a blanket. It doesn't explain why the sun is round, and it doesn't explain also why we have in other planets like Mars or Jupiter that are also rounded. They say that all the stuff that we're seeing in the skies, it's a really big drawing that someone made because people that they like to draw stuff. There is a biblical part inside the flat earthers. They still believe in that God exists and it has all this drawing. I don't know why, because God, please don't do this kind of stuff. It's really hard to believe in you if you're drawing stars for us. We know nowadays that those stars are moving. We have asteroids, we have all the stuff. The next question, asteroids. For these people, you have several explanations. One of those are their military experiments. The military are throwing stuff just for you to keep believing that the earth is round. That's one. This is the tricky stuff. Which military people? Only the Americans? Because we have asteroids every place in the world, because it seems like the USA military, they're really doing something. Electrical. Please hear me out. Every time that someone need to explain something that you're not able to understand really nice, they're going to use electrical, magnetism, and radioactivism. Nuclear stuff. These three subjects, most of the people, they don't really understand because they're tricky. I must say that electromagnetism is not easy to understand because it's really to observe, measure. You need devices to measure the radioactivity, for example. I don't know why I'm talking about radioactivity. The asteroids are something like a lightning that strikes the earth and they create some kind of big disaster. This explanation is funny because some of the asteroids that we had, they were really dangerous. They fall in places that they shouldn't be falling because maybe the military, they are not doing a really nice work. Some of them, they are buried like millions of years. They're like a really big block of metal, ferromagnetism something. Magnetism. Most of them, they're made of ferrum. They're really dangerous sometimes. If the asteroids didn't exist, how the dinosaurs were extinct like 65 million ago? That's the first question. It's a really nice one. The dinosaurs never exist. You didn't expect that, isn't it? The dinosaurs never exist. Another plot twist. The moon doesn't exist, the Apollo 11 never exists, and the dinosaur never exists. Another revelation that we're having today. It doesn't explain why. And how do you explain all the fossils that we found during the years? They were buried by the military, I don't know, something. How do you explain all the space probes that we threw to the space during 100 years now? Maybe? 100 years? Could be. Nah, not 100 years. Voyager 2. We know that Voyager 2 really made a really big stuff. There's several explanations of this probe. They never exist. Of course, they never exist. It was all a really big plot, a really big stage to show you, or CGI. Mars is CGI. It's filmed in some place, some desert place that looks like Mars. It's funny the idea of looks like Mars. How do you know how Mars looks if it doesn't exist? It's funny. That's impressive. They were thrown to the air and they fall, but they never told you. You never expect that, huh? Because you're so naive. Everything is Photoshop. Even the moon landing didn't exist. Photoshop in the 60s. Who cares? You know what? Exists the Photoshop in the 60s, and you didn't know, isn't it? You're learning something today, huh? This is one of the funny stuff. The firmament. The concept of firmament is something that is really, really old. Nowadays, we call something that is firmament, but we know that it's not firmament. It comes from the word firm, that it doesn't move. We know nowadays that that stuff is really moving. We have planets moving, we have asteroids, comets, we have stars exploding, but they believe in the idea of the firmament. Inside the flat earthers, there are several people that they believe several stuff. For example, there's a biblical part of the flat earthers that they believe that this is a drawing made by God. They're so religious that they believe that. It's funny, God drawing stuff. I need to draw this star in here so the people, they don't know that there's space around it. Some other people, they believe that it's a mega structure made by aliens. The main idea is to fool you to believe that the earth is flat because it's flat, but the whole universe is not flat. Because if there are aliens over there, they need to live, I don't know, in another planet, and if that planet is flat or not? That's a really nice question. Maybe it's not flat. Maybe we have the privilege to live in a planet that is flat. Other people, I think this is talking a lot of how these people, they really believe in this stuff. They say, we don't know what it is, but it's over there. It's almost naive. I must say that I feel sometimes a little bit pity about these people because they really believe in this stuff. The windows of the planes. How do you explain that the earth is round from the window of a plane? How do you explain that? I must say that I'm not a really travel guy. I travel in planes like 2 or 3 times in my life. I was never able to see the rounding of the earth. And I must say that I really made a really big effort to try to see the rounding. It was impossible. These people, they believe that all the companies, even Boeing and Airbus, that they hate each other. They really hate each other. They put it together to make rounding windows. That was a beautiful stuff. And it's funny because in an accident, you can see that they are not round. I'm not telling you that it's rounded, there is some kind of lens inside the window. What is the point of it? That's it. The atmosphere. How you can explain the atmosphere? Of course, electromagnetism. We knew that we're going to be on this one. There are several ways to explain this one. The electromagnetism, of course, is going to be in that list. Some objects, they floating, and some other, they're not. How do you explain that? Because inside the philosophy of the flat earthers, but they believe in something known as friction. The scientific people, they believe in something known as friction, but this friction allows you to float in or not. It's really hard to explain because it doesn't have any really nice explanation. They believe in something that is floating in the density and friction, and that's it. The main concept around all the flat earthers is that it's some kind of dome. I don't know if it's glass, if it's or whatever, it's transparent, but the air is inside the dome like a balloon, so you can have air inside the dome. There is any other way that the air could be inside some kind of big stuff with a really big gravity? No, it's a balloon. and you didn't know that. You're really discovering stuff today. What you can find beyond the dome? This is the first really big question, because the biblical people, they believe that there are really big oceans. I don't know why oceans, but there are oceans. Some other believe that it's a dome inside a dome inside a dome, like a really big babushka. Some other believes that there are other domes with also flat earths, with people live in the same reality that we have, also foolish, but this funny conspiracy stuff or whatever. This also connected with the idea of the gravity. The gravity is some kind of myth created by Newton and the NASA. They were working together, you didn't know. There's a really big difference, like 400 years between each other, or 300, who cares? They were working together. They say, well, you know, the gravity is going to be some kind of stuff. And how do you explain the stuff are falling into the ground? Because stuff are falling into the ground. That's why. And I think that we cover all the stuff, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, like, comment, subscribe, and do all the things that YouTubers like to do, and find a dog.